Good Sunday morning. We appreciate you tuning in. I'm John North. You're watching Inside Tennessee. My co-moderator John Becker is away. This morning we're talking politics. Can you imagine? It's actually political season. We've got an election coming up November the 8th, and our guest this morning is on the ballot. His name is Mark Harmon. He is one of the candidates running to be the next congressman for the 2nd Congressional District in East Tennessee. Tim Burchett will also be on the ballot. Before we talk to Mark, however, let's introduce you to our panelists. You may recognize their faces, and I promise you, one day they'll actually be in the studio with us, and we will celebrate with party hats and all of that. We've got Don Bosch, who is a Democrat and an attorney here in Knoxville, and Susan Richardson Williams, who is a Republican and runs her own PR firm. Good morning, my friends.
Good morning.
Appreciate you being here. Mark Harmon, as I said, is the Democrat running for the 2nd Congressional seat. Tim Burchett is the Republican and the incumbent. We invited Tim Burchett to be on with us. He's not on with us. So we appreciate Mark Harmon being on with us. Mark is a journalism professor at UT and is a former Knox County commissioner. Mark, I'll just ask you the basic question before the tougher panelists ask you the harder questions. My question is, why run for Congress?
Well, thank you for asking. Why run for Congress? Because right now, Congress is not serving the needs of everyday people, working families. I'm a person who believes in giving back. You know, I grew up in a family that was not poor, just broke. And I really appreciated things like, well, college loans and grants and opportunities for jobs and opportunities to get into college. And I want to make sure that those things are preserved. I want to also protect women's rights, including the right to an abortion. I want to expand our healthcare opportunities, including a public option. And so those are some of the things that drive me. It's really about giving back. A lot of doors were opened for me, and I'd like to use Congress as an opportunity to open doors for others, especially by increasing the minimum wage and making more college grants available.
Appreciate it. All right, let's hear from the panelists. Susan, you can start. First question.
Sure, thank you. Commissioner, you are university professors, you said, and President Biden recently, through executive order, signed an order that would forgive student loans up to $20,000. Is that something you support? Do you see that kind of support among Knox Countyans and the rest of the district? A lot of my friends are very upset because they have paid their own student loans off, not from government assistance. So I'd like to see where you stand on that.
Well, sure, I'd be happy to speak on it on several levels. First, I don't think we should be so cold and cruel as to say, I suffered, therefore you have to suffer. I think it is reasonable to have some debt forgiveness, and I think the president's plan was quite reasonable. What I would like to do is work on the other end, so we never have to build up that much debt, that students never graduate in as much debt. I would just like to see us dramatically increase the number of grants available so we can have fewer loans and therefore less loan debt. In Tennessee, we made a good start with that. I'll give credit to Republicans, former Governor Haslam and Randy Boyd put together some reasonable proposals. The rest of the nation has to do some of that, but really at the federal level, we have to increase grants, and therefore we never run into that huge a problem again in the future.
Mark Harmon, I'm going to jump in. So let me jump in, Susan, real quick.
Okay.
I'm somebody who had student loans. That's the only way I could have made it, scholarships and student loans. I paid them off. I wouldn't have ever conceived of somebody helping me out. But it's changed. Nobody of my age thought about getting any kind of relief. Today, we hear so much about students or graduates saying, I'm just staggering. What changed?
What changed was the amount. It just became a regular feature. You could get loans frequently through banks, often at compounding or exorbitant rates. And unfortunately, there is a partisan difference here. This started way back with the Reagan administration when they cut back on the amount of money going to schools proportionally per student. And it only got worse at state levels. And pretty soon the only option for students was no longer a series of grants, but a series of loans, and debt built up proportionally. That's wrong. I want to correct that 40-year bad pattern. If I pull off this win, when I pull off this win, that'll be at one of the top items on my agenda.
Susan, I
Well,
interrupted
let me
you.
just follow up with that if you don't mind. Tennessee seems to be in a really good place when it comes to helping students go to the university and certainly to technical schools. We have the Hope Scholarship. We have another Tennessee grant that's $1,000 a year. A lot of students get the Pell Grant. And at the University of Tennessee, thanks to Randy Boyd, there is now the UT Promise.
Right.
So if you're from a lower income family, you actually can go to the University of Tennessee free.
Tuition
So
free.
aren't we in pretty good shape at the University of Tennessee and in the Tennessee in general?
We are in better shape than many states, and I will thank the people who did that, but we're not in perfect shape. You say you go to free. Well, you go tuition free. These are last dollar programs that get up to the cost of your tuition. Well, students know that there's more to it than tuition. There's room and board, books, other things. And because of that, we still need assistance to students. We still need to make sure that program works. And when I pull off this win, I'll make sure that works for all our working families, really because we need that social mobility. We don't need people trapped out of college, forced out of college, when they could be the next person to establish a great business or find a medical cure or help a charity rise and improve lives. We can't afford to lose all those good minds because we can't look to the future and see we need this.
We have to take a break here real quick, but I want to have Don Bosch start. Once we come back from the break, we can pick up with that, or Don, if you want to go with another thread, that's fine. And I'll just remind you, on the last Sunday of September, you are watching Inside Tennessee. We'll be back in just a minute.
John, Tim declined to come on the show, correct?
He didn't want to come on the show with Mark.
Okay. Will he come on alone?
Huh?
Will he come on by himself?
We wanted him to come on with Mark.
Okay.
Thank you.
I just think that's fair.
I do too.
And we're back inside Tennessee. Real quickly, let me describe the configuration of the 2nd Congressional District for you. It is a little bit of this and a little bit of that in East Tennessee. Of course, it includes Knox County, part of Loudoun County, Blount County, Jefferson County, Granger County, and then goes all the way up to the Kentucky line at Claiborne County. So a little bit like that. All right, Don Bosch, throw a question in for us for our guest, Mark Harmon, who's the Democrat.
Well, quick comments, Mark, in talking about education funding. When all of us went to school, and even when Susan was taking notes on papyrus, student loans were 5 or 10% of your income of your job, and now we're seeing them reach well over 50%, and that's a big difference. And then two, most of the people I've been hearing complaining about the loan forgiveness and Pell Grant forgiveness took out hundreds of thousands of dollars in PPP loans that they never had to pay back. So I do think there's some equities in trying to help people that need it on the front end. But pivoting from that, you were a county commissioner here for 4 years, if I believe, maybe longer.
4 years.
You worked under and with, pardon, 6?
No,
4 years, you're correct.
4, okay. Yeah, you worked with and under County Mayor Tim Burchett and had a good relationship with Tim by all accounts and what it seemed.
I need to correct you there. I need to correct you there. I was under Ragsdale. And I did have a good relationship with Tim Burchett. We knew each other. We had spoken several times. So let me just correct the record there.
He was still in the State House then, in the Senate.
That's right. And I blended time. It all gets away from us once in a while. But what's changed, Mark? What do you think has happened in the differences in the ideologies between you and Tim? And why do you feel like, Tim's very popular, but I support a lot more what you stand for, particularly as a Democrat, than what Tim has stood for. And frankly, all I see Tim standing for is standing against, not for very much. Right. What's changed? Why do you think you should run and replace Tim Burchett?
Well, I think a lot of people who previously voted for Tim Burchett have begun to have second thoughts. And they're thinking, gosh, this guy went to the swamp and became just another swamp creature. There's a certain coarseness of the discourse. He's just become yet another apologist for extreme policies, denying women's rights. I mean, I went into this race initially because Tim voted against the peaceful transfer of power. The day after January 6th, he twice voted not to recognize the votes of 2 states. I found that appalling. I found that disturbing. And the more I looked into his record, the worse it got. Yeah, he definitely votes against a lot of popular things, extending the protections of the Violence Against Women Act, the Asian Pacific Hate Act, just item after item, the bipartisan infrastructure bill, and the lame excuses are just pure partisan hackery, and it's disturbing. And I started out on my website with 1 page of bad Tim Burchett votes, and I'm now up to about 4 or 5 pages because the record keeps getting worse and worse. And no matter how much he puts on a Carhartt jacket and engages in some sort of aw shucks faux populism, it's beginning to dawn on people that he's just another corporate shill making excuses and voting against their interests. And if he wants to object to that, well, there's a missing box here. He has been invited to be on this program. He should have been on this program. He was invited to be on the League of Women Voters debate. He turned that down. There was a debate sponsored by the USA Today network newspapers. He didn't show up for that. He's afraid. He's cowardly ducking opportunities for a head-to-head comparison. I don't think he can defend his record.
I will echo, we did invite Tim. He's been on here many times before. We did invite him to be on the show. Susan, you got a question? We have about 2 minutes left.
Oh, no, but I will defend Tim Burchett a little bit. Commissioner, as a Republican, I guess, person who has worked in politics my whole life, and I was a state party chairman, you always tell your candidates not to debate if in fact when you're running in the polls ahead by 10 points or 15 points or something. There's no need to.
That is strategy and not service. I'll tell you what, we'll work it this way. Work it this way.
Strategy.
If I get the honor of being,
but it seems to work.
Well, yeah, sure. But working is not the same as serving the public. So what I would challenge everyone to say, if I become an incumbent, just watch me show up and debate. I've been a debater all the time. I was on my college debate team. I'm not afraid of any challenge, any competitor. I am more than willing to debate ideas head to head with you, but I prefer to debate it head to head with the person who's actually on the ballot opposite me.
Mark, we do have about 1 minute left, and I did want to ask you about the whole issue of women's access to health care, the abortion decision this summer. That's something Tim Burchett has said he supports and said it was a good day for America when that decision came down. You've been critical of him.
Yes. Well, he not only is against women's right to choose, he even joined a lawsuit in support of the awful Mississippi law that our extremist court used to overturn Roe. I believe Roe was law of the land, good precedent for 50 years. We're taking away a right of American women. We should not interject any level of government between a woman, her healthcare provider, and their choices. It's just not the right thing to do. It's not practical. It's not moral. It's not the right position to take for anyone. But the women of our country deserve better than what Tim Burchett is delivering on this issue. And I stand firmly pro-choice and think he is wrong, and he is making choices that harm women.
Mark Harmon, we appreciate you being on the show, Democratic candidate for 2nd Congressional District, along with the GOP incumbent Tim Burchett. The election is November 8th, and early voting starts in about a month. We've got to take a break. When we come back, the panelists and I will talk a little bit about this race.